introduction part. A chess game has 3 stages. We know about the chess game now. For example, in the chess game, there are 3 stages. What are those? An opening stage, a middle game, and an end game. Similar to that, when we have a complex problem to be solved, to develop a software complex product, how is it we are going to plan here? We need a framework. We have to plan a framework, or we are going to structure the complex problem to be solved within which to operate. How many stages we are supposed to come across? Everything you are going to plan in the first stage. So for the problem of creating software systems, so there is a problem given. You have to create some software system. So such a structure is provided by choosing a software architecture. So for based on the given design problem, you are going to going to choose a design pattern. Architecture is nothing but some design pattern you are going to choose. So in this chapter, we learn well-known software architecture. So many patterns you have come across. Now we are going to study a popular architecture called MVC. So what is that? MVC stands for Model View Controller. So it is called as MVC architectural pattern. Let us see what is MVC architectural pattern is. A very simple diagram. You have only 3 blocks here. M stands for model, V stands for V, then the controller. So user will interact with your model via these 2 blocks. What are those? Controller and view. See here, first I have model, then view, then controller. And all these 3 are interconnected. See, this user is going to interact with model with the help of the view and the controller. So this diagram is a simple model view controller architecture. So let us see what actually the MVC architecture pattern is. So let us see what is model first. See, model was introduced in a Smalltalk programming language. This architecture pattern is introduced in programming language called Smalltalk. The pattern divides the application into 3 subsystems. What are those? Model, view, and controller. There are 3 units, subsystems. So this is architecture shown and also. So the pattern separates the application object or the data which is termed the model. So now let us understand what the model is and what the view is and what the controller is. So here model refers to the object or the data to be stored. So you are developing some software, inside that you are going to store some data or some object. This application object itself is a model. So from the manner in which it is rendered to the end user is called view. Now what is view? The way in which this application object you are going to render to the user. How is it visible for the user? That is called as view. And from the way in which the end user manipulates it. So what do you mean by controlling? Controlling means what? You are going to change the behavior. You are going to access the data. You are going to do some changes with respect to the data. So how is it the user will manipulate the given software? So that is called as a controlling. The unit controller will allow the user to manipulate the software. I mean, software means some data which is stored in your software. So the MVC pattern helps produce highly cohesive modules with a low degree of coupling. See, in the module 2 we have studied the concepts of cohesion, coupling, all that. So low degree of coupling means what? Loose coupling. The amount of coupling is less. If you go for, what is that? If you go for tight coupling, that means what? There is an encapsulation. That means you are hiding. So it is not visible. The complete thing is not visible for the user. Whenever I go for low degree of coupling means what? Loose coupling. Loose coupling means what? Encapsulation is low. That means what? You are not going to hide anything from the user. So everything is visible. That is here MVC architecture pattern is designed such that it is visible. So user can easily manipulate it. Fine. So this facilitates greater flexibility and reuse. So very much flexible. User are allowed to do the changes here. And user can reuse the same thing. The architecture allows you to reuse the same. You can build. Using the existing one, you can build another software product also. So MVC also provides a powerful way to organize systems. So it's a powerful technique where it will organize the system such that supports multiple presentations of the same information. I will use the same data for multiple a relatively passive object. So model refers to a application object or a data. So it is also called as passive object where you are going to store the data. Why I am calling passive? Your user will not directly do the changes with respect to model. What are the units it will actually communicate with? User is communicating via these 2. What are those? Controller and view. So model acts as a passive object with respect to user. Whereas controller and view, these are the active objects with respect to user, where user will directly communicate with it. An object can play the role of model. So here object refers to the model. So if the model stores information about bank accounts, I will take an example how the model view architecture controller pattern is going to be used in real-time application. So I will go for some bank account transaction. So here in banking system, how this MVC provides the application. So a certain view may display only the member of accounts. This is used for the user or for the employee of the bank. It will provide the information about the number of accounts. And for the user, whatever the transaction has done and what is the total amount, the account balance. So that can be viewed. Fine. What is the function of controller? Controller will capture the user input and when necessary. Say for example, user has done some transaction that should be captured by the controller. So this issues method calls on model to modify the stored data. If you do some transaction, definitely the stored data is going to be changed. That should be modified. That user can access and he can do the changes. So the model changes only whenever a user is requesting for the banking system, is going to modify according to the user request. So the model changes only when user input causes the controller. So there is a controller for that. So user is requesting the controller, where controller is allowing the whatever the application, the software. Within the software, the controller will take care of the changes to be done. So controller to inform the model of the changes. The same thing is shown in this diagram. See here, I have a user. What are the three blocks we had in the first diagram? I have model, view and the controller. View, user at the other end. Fine. Here I have user at the other end. In place of model, I am writing same thing. In place of controller, again it is taken as the same block. Here in place of view, I have expanded this view into two more subunits. What are those? User interface and model display. So this is a complete MVC architecture pattern or an alternate view of an MVC architecture pattern. Fine. So let us see how this user is going to interact with your pattern. See here, user will view with the help of how is it he will input the data to the model. He will use a user interface. With the help of user interface, user can send the request to the controller. So he is requesting the controller to do some application, some transactions. Fine. Then what actually the controller does? The controller will modify the changes required in the model. And whatever the changes done, that controller will update in the display so that user can access that information. So user can view this with the help of the model display. The output, here user interface is used as an input device and model display is used as an output device. This is how the user is going to interact with your model with the help of the block view and the controller. So model acts as a passive object where controller and view